Good.
Good.
Right.
Good deal.
We might have a really small class, so it just might be you.
My mom and then Kayla I know will be here too.
Oh, okay.
And then
Have you talked to Stephanie? I haven't seen her in a while.
yeah, I haven't. She had some stuff going on with her kid today, so yes. Other Stephanie, yeah. Sorry.
I knew it wasn't me.
I know. Cool. I wonder. Oh, there's my mom. I was gonna say I know she's coming.
So can you, since we're waiting for people to come, Brenda, can you unmute yourself and just kind of share a little bit about, I don't know if you had any thoughts or insights or anything that came up from the homework?
The part about the urges this week, I don't know what the heck, but the entire weekend, I was like losing my mind with urges. It was ridiculous. And it was like the more I tried to work through them, like the stronger they were. And I don't know if it was more that I was like resisting them. Like that's something I am still working on a lot because I do have them so frequently that it's really hard for me to process them and just let it be what it is and pass, because that's like where my struggle with food, a lot of the time that's where my struggle is that I have those urges and they are so ridiculously intense for me that most times I end up giving in because I'm like, I feel like I can't fight it anymore because I feel like it's making me crazy.
Okay.
I did not, however, give in the entire weekend.
Wow.
Not once. Thank God for Dan, my fiance, because he was like, I'm in the same boat. I want to drink beer. I'm like, I need ice cream and cookies. Like, if I don't have ice cream and cookies right now, I might die. So he's like, I'm not having beer and you're not having ice cream and cookies. And so there was both Saturday and Sunday evening. It was like both of us were having horrible cravings, but held each other accountable, because if it weren't for that, I would have just gone and gotten it and eaten it.
And so tell me what it was like allowing the urge. Kind of walk me through the process, what you did to allow an urge.
Well, I try to just like remind myself that it's only going to last a limited amount of time. I just have to let it pass. Try to get myself distracted with something else, or find a healthy alternative, or drink water, or try things to get it to settle down. But the feeling is so intense that it's like, this is ridiculous. And then it's like, well, if I just give in, then it'll go away. But I also know that by doing that, I'm going to feel that instant gratification followed by an extreme amount of guilt. And I'm going to be very angry with myself if I allow myself to do that, because it's one thing to plan to have a cheat or a joy meal. It's another thing for me to just give into those cravings. And I'm trying to remind myself of that, but it's just that is probably one of my biggest things that I struggle with.
Okay.
Aside from body image, which I feel like I'm doing a lot of positive things there.
Oh, good.
But as far as like my lifestyle eating, it's those urges that get me almost every time.
Okay. And so I want to kind of slow down a little bit and just, so hi guys, we just started, Brenda was the only one here, so we're kind of working with Brenda right now. A couple of things you said about when you felt the urge, you tried to distract yourself, or you said you tried to remind yourself it's only going to last for a limited amount of time, so that's okay. But what you're trying to do is when you're doing those things, you're not allowing the urge. You're not saying, oh, this is what an urge feels like. I feel it in my throat. I feel it in my stomach. I feel it in my head. And sit with it and allow it. You're trying to push it away. You're trying to say, I'll distract myself. I'll do something else. So that's not allowing it. Do you see the difference?
And I did try to go through it that way,
Mm-hmm.
but to no avail.
Okay.
I
So
don't know.
it's positive because you acknowledge that you're starting to know when it's happening. So that's a good thing for sure. And then you didn't give in to them. So that's amazing. That's amazing. And the other thing is you said that if you just give in, if you just eat whatever it is, then at least it'll go away. But it goes away for a minute and then it makes it stronger next time because it's the pleasure part of our brain, the subconscious, that is saying, I need to be rewarded, give me this. But your prefrontal cortex, your thinking brain, is the one that's saying, I'm not going to do that. So it's when it's in control, the other part, the pleasure seeking part of your brain, it can't make you do anything. Do you understand? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And so you just have to start thinking about that. Okay, brain, I know this is a habit from the past. This is an urge I'm feeling. And then just kind of allow it. One person that I work with, she likes to put sweets on the counter and just let them sit there and smell them, and which I think is a little over the top, but she just really wants to be with that urge so that it goes away, because it will eventually go away. Just like with Dan's cravings for the beer, when he starts to talk about it and then allow it, and I really want a beer, it's cold, it's on a hot day today or whatever, then that's kind of the same thing, and the urges will become less and less. They won't be as strong. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So keep working on it. You're doing good. You're making progress. You definitely are.
Oh, it was rough. It's like a
The other
holiday weekend, of course. That's what we do. It's a holiday. We eat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because sometimes you're around other people that bring up more stress for you. If you're around family maybe, or friends that you're not normally around, that brings another element. So just think about that and be proud of yourself, because that's amazing. Good job to you and to Dan.
Right.
What about you, Kim? You were how was the last week? Did you have anything that came up from the homework you did? Anything you want to share?
Well, I went and bought some capris that fit, and then I went and bought some tops and stuff. So I feel a lot better about that. I finally feel like I have some clothes that I can wear this summer that I don't look awful in. And so even if I lose 10 pounds, they might even still work. I did okay for the weekend. I didn't pig out or have like a ton of things that I shouldn't have. We only ate out once, and of course I had a salad with chicken. I have been trying to write down all the foods that I eat, trying to track. And I have bought a journal, and I'm trying to write down thoughts, but that's a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. It's hard. It's just, I think that I fill my time with a lot of busyness instead of sitting down and having like quiet time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so I've been working on that. And by having a new journal, I thought that would help me work on that a little bit more. So I have written down a few things.
Good. And maybe in the beginning, you said you end up writing the to-do list. Maybe you're just writing the to-do list, but then you give yourself that opportunity to just kind of think about or feel things that are going on. And super great that you bought some clothes that you feel good wearing.
Yes.
And we don't have to say that you don't look awful in. You look good in them. because you said that, and I want you to think about that.
Oh, yes.
you
Well,
said
it's just they're a lot bigger than my other clothes. So I thought, oh gosh, I'm so disappointed, but I'm really glad that you did say something about that. And I do feel much better about it. So,
Okay.
it took 6 months to put on all this weight. I'm not going to take it off in 6 days. And I think that that's part of my problem, trying to be patient. The weight's not just going to melt off.
And as we get older, it gets a little harder, and we
Oh
can't
my gosh.
weight with exercise or
Yes.
just, yeah. So
I used to
again,
be able to starve myself and I would lose weight. Well, I can starve myself now and then the scales won't move. And so that part's really frustrating. So I need to just learn to eat right and to exercise and to do it the right way. Because for years and years, I've done it all the wrong way, but it worked when I was younger.
right. And it's okay, but don't be disappointed, because you said disappointed in yourself too. So you say a lot of negative things to yourself. And so maybe if you just start writing down, because those are the thoughts and feelings that you need to start acknowledging,
Okay.
because those are the things that are stopping you. Because again, it goes back to the clothes that you feel good in. You feel good in these new clothes, not when I said you bought some new clothes that fit and you feel good in them. And then what did you say? You said they're
Bigger. I'm just being honest.
they fit you. That's all.
They do. And I got a good deal.
There you go. And then you went out to eat once and you had a salad with chicken. Awesome.
Yes.
That's amazing. So these are the things
Thank you.
that just, to be super proud of yourself about. Yeah.
Yes, thanks.
What about you, Kayla?
I did good.
You did good.
Did.
Did you have anything from the homework that came up or anything you want to share?
No.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Then do you have anything, nothing you want to share? Any insights you've had, or did you have a good fourth?
I did. There is one thing that I wanted to share from last week. So when we were talking about like eating out and like the other partner wants to still eat out, I still ate out with my husband and kids. I just took my meal prep food.
Good job. Yeah.
And it worked. People looked at me like I was crazy,
Yeah.
but it worked. And then now my husband's doing it with me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're going to save money, and then you won't have to go out to eat, because he might not like that, going out to eat when he takes his food.
Right. Right.
Good. That's wonderful.
Thing I was just gonna do and then quit, and then he saw that I continued to do it, and so then he decided he wanted to start doing the same thing and change.
Wow. That's great. Good job. It's because he's been watching you.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to share? No? Okay. So I got a lot to cover this week. Some of it's going to be new. Some of it might be a little bit repetitive. But I've been researching away like crazy, just on the brain and learning more about it, and also trying to give you more reinforcement why we need to go and look inside that brain, because that's what it's all about. It's needing to convince you, because maybe I'm not saying it the right way, or you're not believing it all the way. And it just takes time to realize, okay, I got this super massive major computer that no one else in the world has, and I need to figure out the best way to use this cool program that I have, which is my brain and this computer. And it, there's nothing like it in the world. And even if AI, artificial intelligence, takes off, it's still not our brain. It still doesn't have the capabilities that our brain does. So it's something that you hear a lot about is AI, but again, our brain is much better than that. So I wanted to let you know that there's some research that I was looking at where most of the stories, so the stories are those negative things that we tell ourselves that are in our brain. We had those written on our brain's chalkboard by the 3rd grade or earlier. That means at the age of 8 or 9, we already started saying all these things to ourselves, and we were just a young child. And sometimes it goes back to even before you have a memory. Like when you're 2 years old, something that happens, some reaction that other people give you with a reaction of something you did, that starts to say, your brain starts to say things to yourself, and they're not positive. And the other thing to think about is all those stories that we've been telling ourselves for years and years and years from being that child comes from a person. When we were very little, we were dependent on the people around us. We were dependent on our parents, our siblings, other adults. And because we were dependent on them and we studied them because we needed them so badly, we were always looking for their approval and their assistance. And so when we know something or saw something that was disapproving that we did, we started to write on that chalkboard in our brain to say, oh, I accidentally wet the bed, and that's not my mom doesn't approve of that, and I can tell. And so that says that I'm a bad person. So those are the types of things that happen. Or if someone was hurt when you were a child, like you were playing Foursquare or wall ball, if you could play it back then, or Red Rover, and a child was hurt, then you start to say to yourself, oh, I hurt another person and I feel so bad. And, you know, those types of things are being written on your brain. And we don't have to go back and remember every single thing that happened and change it. All we need to do is start thinking a different way about ourselves and being the watcher of the things that our brain is saying and writing them down. And when we start to watch our brain and what it's saying, we can say, no, wait a minute. That's not right. I'm not a terrible person. I'm not a person that hurt somebody else as a child. Maybe these things aren't true. And so back to our parents, they had to do everything for us. We depended on them to drive us around maybe, or make our food. They had to take care of our home. They had to take care of our clothes. And so because of that, we were constantly watching and desiring their approval. And when they were disapproving, we say it meant something about us, and it didn't. It was just their place and their ability to love or care for somebody else, and has nothing to do with us, because we're 100% lovable and there's nothing wrong with us. And so this kind of follows from the thoughts from last week. And maybe you can start to see where those thoughts mess you up. And so I wanted to give you an example of something that's happening in my life. And I had to kind of think about it this week, because my first place always is there's something wrong with me and I need to be different. And so I started doing research on claustrophobia because I need to have an MRI, and I don't want to take the drugs to calm me down, or I'm not even sure what the drugs really do for you. But I've been nervous about confined spaces. So when I did this research on claustrophobia, I kept finding psychologists that said, first thing you have to do is go back and figure out what happened to make you afraid of a confined space. And then once that's done, then you start working on reasoning that out. And I was like, no, I have this super great brain. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just start having better thoughts and feelings about this MRI. So when I started to work on that, I started to think about, I have feelings of being relaxed and calm. And normally, you know, when you feel claustrophobic, it might be anxious and afraid or something like that. And so my feeling that I'm going to experience is relaxed and calm. And my thoughts are that I can just close my eyes and meditate. And I'm going to say happy things to myself. And I'm going to do terrific. It's going to be absolutely fine. And then I don't have to have somebody come with me to drive me home. And you can't even sit in the waiting room anymore. So this person would have to sit in a car, and it might be a hot day. So anyways, I wanted to give you an example of how to do this. So then what I've done, I've started to have these thoughts, and I even climbed underneath my house to just sit and breathe, because it's kind of a confined space and not something that I've enjoyed. And I was okay with it. So start to think about your brain that way. Again, you don't have to go back and find things. I mean, if you have 15 personalities in your head, which, you know, sometimes our spouses or friends around us say we do, but we really don't. So you don't really need to go to a psychologist or psychiatrist and spend months laying on a couch. It's you working on your brain. And if you have something that, you know, definitely you want to work on, you could definitely do this, but there are ways you can do this for yourself before you go down that road. And there's new research into why we have this all or nothing mentality when we diet. And it's kind of what Brenda talked about, because we heard it a little bit in Brenda, and we also heard a little bit in Kim. Like, we say these things about ourselves and we think we're either all good or all bad. And there are reasons that we think that way. And because we already know what the smart choice is. But why do we cheat a little and then go overboard? And that's what you'll hear people saying sometimes, like, oh, I just had a bite of something. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I went through the McDonald's drive-through, and then I went to Taco Bell and something crazy. And maybe you can't relate to that, but I hear that from time to time. Well, it turns out that when we feel guilt or shame about a food choice or an action we take, like cheating a little bit, maybe a bite of something, that activates the reward center in our brain. And diet plans create a boundary or a line around us that we're not supposed to cross. And when we feel guilt or shame, our reward center gets a hit of dopamine. It feels a little bit better, believe it or not. Just like a gambler, when they gamble and they lose money, a lot of times you'll hear them say, then they just went overboard and they lost everything. Or a shopaholic will buy, maybe they're trying not to shop at all, and then they'll just buy tons of stuff at one time because they start to feel that guilt or shame around their activities. When you lose weight and cheat on your diet and then you go overboard, the brain that's driving us beyond our sense of what is correct for us to do. The brain needs to be understood and investigated, and that's why we're spending so much time on that. This is the important part, because we do not change our relationship with ourselves or with food until we start to see, what our brain is doing, and then we can start to make those changes. And so if we don't start to look at how we think about things and write down our feelings and be the watcher, start watching what we're saying to ourselves, this will continue over and over and over. And a lot of times it gets worse. And if you were a drinker, that's when they say you hit rock bottom, because you're just trying so hard to hold on and think it's all about willpower, and it's not about willpower. We just don't have that much willpower. And it's said that habits are about 50% of our day. So we could rely on maybe having some willpower about 50%, and the habits are about 50%. And habits, again, are those, I don't remember if you remember this, but like brushing your teeth or driving to work. Those are the things that we just do over and over, where we don't even need to use our prefrontal cortex. We can just use our lizard brain, the habit brain, to help us do it. And so when we're not on autopilot, then we're using our prefrontal cortex. And so all a habit is a trigger or a cue, and it kicks off that recipe of what we do. You put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, you run water on it, you start brushing your teeth. That's the habit. The kickoff is brushing my teeth, and then the rest of it just happens. And then the end of the habit gives you some kind of small reward, like your teeth feel good, or if it's something bad that you do, there's still a reward. Even though you want to beat yourself up and have shame, there is still some little something in there that is a win. So maybe you're someone that has ate donuts for breakfast for a long time, and one morning you've decided you're not going to eat donuts anymore, but you get up late for work. And so you don't have time to make your healthy meal. So you just go off to the office. And again, that's just that autopilot going. And then somebody brought in donuts that day. And you just have no self-control. And maybe you don't even realize that you've eaten that donut until half of it's gone. And then you just continue to eat or feel bad. And so when you make the choice to start a new habit, a habit takes between 28 and 60 times to be an automatic habit. The good news is once you start, there's something that happens after the first 3 to 5 times of doing it that starts to change the old way and make it a little bit less difficult to do this new approach, this new habit. Lots of emotions are going to come up as you start to change. Your body doesn't want to think and doesn't want to use the prefrontal cortex. That'll kind of fan the flames of the old habit. And so something to think about. And again, it's writing down those thoughts, spending time being grateful, but writing down the thoughts is the most important thing, because that's the only way you can start to identify them, because you just don't even know what the brain's saying. And about 80% of our thoughts are just recycled over and over. We say the same things over and over. And so I don't know if you noticed that from the homework last week. It was probably hard to say the positive things about yourself. And it was probably hard to go back and remember the 5 best things that happened, because we just, again, saying those over and over the same things. Think of the urges and asking those questions from last week. You probably saw the same thoughts coming up again and again. Having a good life, a life fulfilled, an adventurous life, a new body will bring up thoughts of anxiety or uneasiness in your body or your mind. And we need to realize this and accept that it's going to happen, and change our mind about anxiety and easiness we experience when we do new things. You won't die from it. And that is being able to sit in that uncomfortable place, just like we heard from the homework. Being able to sit with that is going to make all the difference, because you're not going to die. It's going to be over in a minute. And when we are doing new and exciting things, that's when we feel that uncomfortableness. And that's just part of growth and change. So important to think about that. And then the other thing that happens when we have thoughts of gratitude is in our brain, there's a little release of serotonin, because it's positive stuff, but it doesn't do it on its own. It doesn't think grateful thoughts. If you start being grateful and happy with things that you know happened, or with yourself, and finding new things every day to be grateful for, even when you mess up. Like if you only ate a pint of ice cream and you wanted more, you could say to yourself, I only ate a pint of ice cream instead of an entire gallon of Brownie Thunder ice cream. Good job, girl. I mean, that's my thing. It's like ice cream. Oh my gosh. So what happens is we start to have credibility with ourselves. And so that's when we start to be positive, we start to have more credibility. And that's also because I want you to think about the promises that we make all day to everybody. I mean, everybody's just, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. Our bosses, our kids, everybody is asking us to do stuff. And we tend to want to keep promises for others, especially for our families. And so we put that in the forefront of our lives. And then there's just nothing left for us at the end, because we've spent so much time trying to fulfill those promises and make everybody else happy. So we need to be able to say no and build up slowly to have promises that we can make for ourselves. So for example, if we wanted to start running or walking 3 times a week, let's say, and we're not doing it right now, maybe in the past, we would just beat ourselves up again and again. I didn't go running again. I didn't go walking again. I didn't do it. And so then we start to have so much less faith in ourselves. We just don't believe that we're going to do it. So we have to, and we have shame too around that. So we have to break it down into baby steps, little smaller steps. Like maybe you're going to start walking or running, and maybe you just go out and buy the shoes the first week. And then the second week you say, well, let me see, where do I want to go? That's a beautiful place. That could, I could walk with my dog, or walk with a friend. And then the third week you set it up. The other thing that happens is you start to create a desire to do that thing, and you're holding yourself back by not forcing yourself to take all these steps. And it's that way with anything that comes up that where you just feel stopped. You just have to take it and break it into smaller steps. And that's all your brain is screaming for, because it's like, I don't want to do this new thing and I can't figure it out. Help. And so then by breaking it down a little bit more, it makes it easier. And if it's, I think you already have the gym part figured out, but if it's the gym or getting back to the gym, it's the same thing again. I'm going to drive to the gym and not even go inside. And then next week, I'm going to go drive to the gym and I'll stay 5 minutes. And if I don't want to do it after that, I'm going to leave and go home and give yourself that, that time to build up these better habits and to start to have more faith in yourself. I mean, it's, and I know that some of us still believe that if we just keep beating ourselves up, we'll go. But it's like, if you think about kicking the horse to go faster, it just won't work anymore. The horse will finally just say, forget it. You know, you're just kicking me all the time. I'm not going anywhere. And that's what your mind is saying to you. It's just too difficult of a world out there. And so the other thing I want to talk about is diet mentality and deprivation. Most people claim that the diets don't work and eating changes don't last because of deprivation. We seem to believe that deprivation is an involuntary feeling brought on by the food or lack of food. Deprivation is simply a feeling we've created based on our desire. The more we desire something, the more we feel deprived when we think we don't get it. Diet mentality is about giving the diet the power to be the solution, but also the cause of failure and emotions of deprivation. Desire causes deprivation. You cause your own desire, and the secret to losing weight is not to over desire that food. You will know when you manage your desire or your urges, because you will not feel any sort of mental deprivation when you're eating on a clean lifestyle protocol. Restriction doesn't cause binging on food any more than restriction of alcohol causes binging on alcohol. We would never tell somebody who is binging on alcohol to drink so they don't binge anymore. It doesn't make sense. And so that would have to do more with if you're going to eat no flour, no sugar, because the restriction reveals the underlying neutral pathways, habits, or addictions that need to be extinguished. And it happens over time. It's just not always the best thing or feel that comfortable in the beginning. So, like I was talking about this woman that likes to put the brownies on the counter and just smell them and look at them. She's embracing discomfort. And I often tell students that the opposite of overeating is misery, and misery is okay. And misery is what we feel when we stop overeating, and it's part of the process and the reason we're overeating in the first place. This is not a good reason to go back to overeating. This is a perfect time to learn how to feel and how to allow uncomfortable urges. And you will experience 3 to 6 weeks of discomfort based on the following physical and emotional effects of major diet changes. In the physical side, you might feel the flu-like symptoms or a headache. You might feel weakness or physical cravings, the urge to overeat, the urge to binge, hunger, or maybe even dizziness. And the emotional feelings you'll have are deprivation, stress, anxiety, focusing on food, isolation, depression, loss, self-pity, or rage. So that's what's happening when you're changing the way you're eating. And a lot of you have already gone through this, or you're close to the end of that 6 weeks, I would imagine. Because eventually your hormones will come back into balance and your neurotransmitters in your brain will heal and your taste buds will readapt to eating better. Once you're fat adapted and you've learned how to confidently allow those negative emotions or the urges, you'll feel better than you ever have. And that's why we want to make the decisions ahead of time. So planning the day before what we're going to eat, that involves us to use the prefrontal cortex to think about and make decisions and plan instead of allowing it to be with our subconscious brain that just will say, for me, it would be chips and ice cream. Just do that because it's easier and I know where it's at. And so you have to start thinking about that. So planning all the food 24 hours in advance on your, your lifestyle eating protocol, and then being specific about what you're going to eat tomorrow. Write it down. Don't make the decisions on the fly because they're usually driven by that primitive urge, and that won't serve your long-term desires. Always plan to have a type of exception eat or joy eat ahead of time, 24 hours ahead of time, and be specific. And if the time comes when you've planned that joy eat, let's say you're going to go out to dinner and plans changed or something like that, eat something anyways. Give yourself that joy because you were looking forward to it. And again, your mind has to start to have confidence in you. And so it needs to know when you say you're going to do something, you do it. Never make the exceptions on the fly. And if you do, just be kind to yourself and try to do better the next week. Do less of the bad stuff. It's really important to do this for yourself because it's all about you having more confidence in yourself. Meditation. I don't think we've talked about meditation. So it's just like the writing things down. It's us slowing ourselves down again. And meditation is not supposed to be uncomfortable or peaceful, not peaceful. You need to sit and allow the urges and thoughts and feelings without judgment and without attachment. And for me, I don't like that. I don't like that feeling of needing to quiet my brain. You're going to have 1,000 urges to stop, to itch, to quit, to move. This is just part of it. Again, your brain doesn't want to give up control, and you need to kind of let it know, this is what we're going to do right now. And over time, you're going to feel better about allowing those. Again, this is another urge. Same thing, because it's the urge to quit, the itch, move, think about a million things. Oh, I can't quiet my brain. All these things are coming in. You just allow whatever's happening in your brain and you just push it away and go back to focusing on your breathing or maybe some soft music. It's usually better to have something to focus on and just do that 5 to 10 minutes a day. It's great if you can get to the point where you're doing it in the morning and at night. There are tons of meditation videos or YouTubes that you can watch in that 5 to 10 minute range. And it might help you in the beginning because they'll help you get ready for it. And there might be music. It might ask you to send things off to God. Like, this is something that's on my heart. Let's just pass that up because there's nothing you can do about it. Just send it off. There's tons of things out there. And you don't need to change any of the things that are happening. You just need to be compassionate and non-judgmental of the things that are happening. Because what you're starting to do when you're writing things down, when you're meditating, is you're starting to align with the watcher. And that is the part of your brain that's going to watch and listen to what you're saying to yourself. And that will allow you to come from a place of peace when you start to watch. And no matter how messy the show gets, you're aligned with the watcher as you meditate. Meditation helps you get skilled at being at the highest version of yourself and embracing discomfort on purpose. The other thing that meditation does for you is when you start to allow that quietness in that space, you're going to start to have better thoughts. You're also going to have the space to think about something differently. And again, asking better questions of yourself. Not, why did I do that? But brain, I'm having this problem. Help me figure it out. I need 25 examples of what I could do in this situation or something like that. And those things will come to you. So for the meditation, sit for 5 to 10 minutes on purpose and just watch yourself. It'll get easier over time. And it will start to reduce your stress or cortisol that's happening in your body from being stressed. Another thing we need to start to do for ourselves is creating comfort that's away from food. And so one of the motivations of that motivational triad, if you remember that, is to seek pleasure and comfort and avoid pain. And it's important to learn to comfort ourselves without relying on anything external. As we turn down the volume on the artificial pleasures, so that's Netflix, shopping, food, alcohol, binging on watching anything, or even exercise can be a negative external artificial pleasure. We start to heal the brain and we start to enjoy that natural pleasure of life that's less intense, but is more conscious. So think about having comforts. And especially in this time when you feel maybe a little chaotic about what's happening with your eating plan and exercise plan, slow walks, like I said, with like a dog or in a beautiful area, if you enjoy water, reading a good book, listening to good podcasts, not more to do, but maybe there's something you're interested in and you've never listened to a podcast about it, like maybe learning Italian or something but it's got to be something you enjoy and you're not putting more pressure on yourself, but you can just enjoy it. Or just beautiful music. Maybe there's classical music that's very relaxing, soft clothing, soft blankets, sitting in the sunshine in the morning. If you get new sheets for your bed, a clean closet, scented candles, sleeping in, watching a great movie, or getting a spa service. Those are all things that you can start to comfort yourself with instead of food. False pleasure versus well-being. When we talk about weight loss, one of the examples we use is the difference between overeating for false pleasure and experiencing well-being of health at a natural, neutral weight. When it comes to overeating, there's a cycle of over-desire, overeating, and that leads to overweight, and so low confidence in ourselves and low self-esteem. Low self-esteem penetrates the need for comforting pleasure, and the cycle repeats with over-desiring as an escape for the uncomfortable emotions we might feel. When we learn how to feel instead of eating, delaying gratification and taking responsibility for emotions, and when we plan our food, the cycle is vastly different. We feel in control. We can manage our eating and our desire, and our body weight starts to come down. We begin to have tremendous confidence and self-esteem that then we can apply to all of the areas of our life. The false pleasure and well-being scenarios continue to expand the more they are practiced. We need to get better at positive self-esteem instead of the false pleasure. It's a mistake to think that things are just going to stay static. Because they just don't. And if we allow the negative to keep happening, then that penetrates the consciousness and we don't have self-management. We just feel out of control. It's not simply about being lean and being able to wear the clothes you want. It's not about being able to manage your weight to the pound. It's not simply about honor. It's not about simply honoring your commitment to yourself. It's about developing the skills that will continue your growth and evolving through your life. False pleasure eating, the signs of that are immediate gratification, constant negative consequence, tolerance, increased desire, unconscious neural pathways strengthening, intense pleasure expectation. So that feeling like if I just eat that, then the other part's going to go away. And keep focusing on the false pleasure, which is the food, or sometimes the false pleasure is even allowing yourself to do things you don't want to do, because there's kind of that hit of dopamine because you've done something negative and you feel guilt. Artificial motivation happens and your dopamine becomes downregulated, which means you need more and more and more of the same things to make yourself feel better. And so external dependence can be on drugs, alcohol, flour, sugar, porn, internet, video games, shopping, TV, Netflix, people pleasing, approval getting. And so we haven't really talked a lot about people pleasing, but that is another negative thing when we are trying to get approval from other people. And so some of the things that are positive for us to do, to think about in the future, might be cleaning out the house. And that sounds overwhelming. But what if you started to look at, I think I'll just clean that one drawer in my house. You start to have things that you're accomplishing that are on a small scale. And then maybe you just do one shelf in your closet. Because having a clean, organized house is a representation of what's happening in our mind. Because when we're in a space that's organized and clutter-free, then that's a representation that's actually happening in our brain. Because a lot of us use all the clutter and not being able to think as a way of avoiding. And that's what our house shows us, is if that's where we're at with our brain. So that's what I have for you today. Any questions about any of the things I talked about, the concepts?
What about the people pleasing and the other thing that was associated with it? I thought that was really good.
So we
Approval
use
getting, that's what it was.
approval getting or people pleasing. Yes. So we use, again, external people or approval getting instead of having confidence in ourselves. And it's kind of like a vicious cycle, because then we're saying all the time, I need to please these people to feel good about myself, instead of allowing those feelings to come from inside of me.
Okay.
And then as we people please, we can be taken advantage of. We don't always stay in a positive place with the people pleasing, because then we feel like it's kind of this vicious cycle. So it's something to think about with the people pleasing. I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think I've really talked about that before. And you have to work on it, and you have to allow yourself to disappoint other people and please yourself. And so coming out of being a people pleaser is very hard, because you have to start to say no, and people might be mad at you. And that's when you're a people pleaser, that's the hardest thing. You don't want anybody to be mad at you, but you do feel taken advantage of very often. I forgot to talk about one thing. So I want to offer each of you a 30-minute session for free, just one-on-one. And in the homework, I have a little link to click to set up an appointment on my calendar. And so that would just be you and I talking about whatever you want. I would want you to have a struggle, or be able to talk about some kind of a struggle that you're having, so we can break it down, and maybe you get some relief around that by using that model. So taking a circumstance, looking at the thoughts and feelings and the actions and results. So that's what I'd like to do. If you're, and then I want to record it too, just so you know. So we will record it, so you don't have to try to take notes. I'll send you the recording and you can listen back. And it's always a good idea to listen back to yourself, because there are going to be things that you didn't realize that were said. And I might not even notice them, but you might notice them when you listen back to yourself and what you're saying about yourself. That might be of insight to you. So again, that'll be in the homework. You'll just have to click a link. And I also put it in the Facebook page, a link there to schedule that appointment. What else? What else came up? Is that you?
Yeah, I'm muted myself.
You're funny. Don't be shy. We have 11 minutes. Would you guys rather, would you type in the chat box? Would that be, if you ever had questions, would you do that instead? I have some of my bigger groups do that, where they just type in the chat box and then nobody knows it's them asking a question. So that's something we could do if you're interested. Did you raise your hand, Kayla? No, no. You know, and I want to tell you a little bit about, so this week has been kind of a crazy week. And in the past of my life, I would never have been able to handle the things that are happening right now in my life. It's like, it's okay. I like things very organized, and I like to be in control, and I am having my house remodeled. So I have people at my house every day working. I don't have a roof on part of my house, and it's raining, and I also have a big hole in my wall, and we have raccoons. So I'm not even, it's like, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And the project isn't going as planned. And so that's a little stressful. So I have no kitchen, and I'm committed to being on my eating lifestyle. So it's like I have a microwave, and I'm buying those bagged salads, and that's what I'm eating, and using the Traeger, and had my husband set up a little wash tub in our shower so that I could wash our dishes. Cause it's like, I'm not going to change just because this is happening. I was exposed to COVID, and then found out after the 4th of July, after I'd been with my family, and I had to call a niece who works in the ER and tell her that I potentially was exposed. And my mom, who I gave a hug to, who's 81, I had to say, hey, this is happening. I had a mole removed, and they took a lot more skin than they thought, or a lot more of the tissue around it. And then they called and said they didn't get it all, and they had needed to go back in. I mean, there's been a lot of things. So but in the past, I would have just gone ballistic, and my poor husband would have had to deal with me being upset and just not being able to cope. But it's like, you know what? I work on my thoughts every morning. I have no control over most things that are happening in my life, as with anybody, but I can control how I feel and what I think. And so that's something important. Just want to be able to give you an example. And so I have a question about meal prep in the meantime. So,
I just meant is that that could be a solution for you. So we even talked about that last week, but there's people who make all that food for you. So instead of you guys having to cook and worry about it, you could do that.
That's a great idea. That's an absolutely great idea. Yes, I didn't even think about it, because I was just like, I'm gonna do this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And those are the kind of the worst times sometimes. But it's like, you know what? It's summer. It's warm. We can be outside. We don't need to be inside. I can just buy gallons of water. If it gets bad, maybe I could buy paper plates, but I just don't like to do that. I like to eat on real plates. So, but those are the types of things that you can start to manage in your mind. And when you start to manage your mind better, more things are going to happen. More things come your way that are positive, because you're proving you can handle it, whatever it is. Does that bring up anything for anybody?
I will say that my reactions are a lot more thought out now. I work a very stressful job, and there was a situation last week that in the past would have totally sent me spiraling, and it would have been a really awful day. But it wasn't. It was fine. We sometimes just gotta roll with it. And
Good. So what do you think, what did you do different? What did you notice? What would you have done in the past? Because you were kind of general about your.
So we actually were understaffed by an entire nurse. So I basically had nobody to take care of one whole group of patients, unless myself as the charge nurse, who normally doesn't take patients because there's so many other things the charge nurse has to do, especially that time of day gets really busy. So in the past, I would have been on the phone. I would have been super negative. This is going to be horrible. Blaming it on my manager. It's not her fault somebody didn't show up. Somebody didn't show up. It is what it is. But there's patients they need taken care of. So figure it out. And so I found myself thinking, I have two options. One is I can make a bad situation worse by getting into that negative spiral, and then therefore I'm leading a team here, so it's only going to bring the entire team down. Or I can hold back all my negative thoughts, take on the group of patients, and just do what needs done. If the phone rings for 10 minutes, it rings for 10 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
We're here to take care of patients, then that's what we're going to do. And we ended up not having, we started our shift at 7 in the morning. It was like multiple things throughout the day. Oh, you're going to have help at this time. Nope, that person's not coming. You're going to have help at this time. Nope, that didn't happen either. And just one thing after another all day long. And that would have totally thrown me. But we finally got help at 2:30 in the afternoon, and then it got even crazier from there. And at the end of the day, everybody clocked out on time. Nobody was complaining about anything, and we all just went about our business. It was what could have been really horrible wasn't.
Wow. I'm proud of you, Brenda. That's a big deal.
Thank you.
And you're a leader, and you're showing leadership.
I got offered a new job position. I start August 1st.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you see how that happens? And it's not like it's a direct all the time correlation, but you're proving that you can handle more, and you proved your leadership. And the other thing you did is you didn't let that all roll downhill, like you said, and affect all the people under you. They got to leave on time. They didn't have to hear, I don't know what Brenda in the past would have been, or maybe you held it all in. I'm not sure, but that's
Oh no,
wonderful.
I was vocal.
Okay. Congratulations.
I was the queen of negative Nancy.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not that person anymore. So
That's so great. I love it.
I think Jess has had his fair dose of Brenda's version of negative Nancy. Yes, you have. It's okay. You don't have to lie.
So then he probably sees a change in you.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah. That's a win.
Definitely.
Yeah. What was the name of the meal prep place in Post Falls? Do you remember, Jess?
There's a few here. So I tried one. It's called Lean Cuisine. It's one that just opened in Coeur d'Alene, and they had some pretty good options. And then there's a like a fit food truck, and it's in Post Falls or off of Prairie. It's kind of in between Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene, and they also do a meal prep service. I haven't tried them yet, but they're supposed to be phenomenal. So that's my next stop at. And I know they do whole prep for a week as well. Fit and Lean, I believe, is what it's called. I'll look it up for you though.
That's fine. I can find it. I just didn't, it's so funny. I didn't even think about it. And there's Pantry Fuel in Spokane, and I didn't even think about them either.
Yeah.
And they used to
Jess,
be.
are you talking about the Eat Fit food truck?
Yes, that one.
Okay.
Their food is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever eaten there?
No, but I've heard nothing but good things about it.
You can build whatever you want, or they have pre-made stuff, or pre-done menu, I should say, not pre-made, but they have their menu, or you can build your own and make it whatever you want it, and everything is listed out in macros. And like if we go out to eat, that's where we go.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Way to go.
That's good to know. Those are good things for us to share with each other and keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is week 4. So it's been a month. That's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting for me. So what I'm hoping, if you could let everybody else know, Jess, that I'm offering that 30-minute.
I'll email it out.
Yeah, okay. And then you just have to schedule it on Acuity. I don't have it all figured out yet, but you can get it, you can get it on my schedule, and it'll be really fun to get to talk to you one-on-one. Okay. I guess we will see each other next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.